Duke fans, hello and welcome to episode number 191 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Guys, we are somehow approaching 200. I don't understand how we've been around that long, but for those of you who have stuck around with us, we appreciate you. I am your host this week, Donald Wine, coming to you from Washington, D.C., somewhere out in the outer space that is Durham, North Carolina. We have Sam Klein. What's going on, Sam?
Hey, I was at the game on, I guess it was Saturday. Saturday. When,
get your days of the week right.
Duke beat the pants right off of Notre Dame, and I don't think that Mike Bray had anything to say about the referees after the game was over.
No, probably not. But we'll get into that in just a second. Before we do that, our resident ATLian, Jason Evans, is also here. Jason, hello, sir.
Hello to you as well. This has been kind of a big basketball weekend. We had a lot of NBA stuff going on with the slam dunk.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about slam dunk later on. We will discuss the slam dunk outrage later on this podcast.
Oh, yes. It's going down. I have thoughts on what I saw last night. So before we do that, we are going to talk about some Duke basketball. And yesterday was a great day for Duke basketball. Duke basketball hosted the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Apparently Notre Dame showed up and played a little bit of basketball, but it does not reflect that in the score.
Host. We were not a nice host.
We were terrible hosts. We dispatched them by a score of 94-60. Jason, we already started with that, and I'll kick it to you first. What did you see from this game that made this so easy?
I mean, the easy answer is Duke hit their threes in a pretty big way. I texted you guys at one point during the game a photo of a moment in the second half. Vernon Carey is in the middle, and the ball has just been passed to him. He is surrounded. Every single one of the guys are outside the three-point line by Matthew Hurt, Trey Jones, Joey Baker, and Alex O'Connell. Again, all four of them are outside the three-point line, and you can see the entire Notre Dame team has their heads turned, and they are watching Vernon Carey with the ball because they're all terrified of what Vernon Carey is going to do to them in the post because he was incredibly efficient in this game, as he quite often is. But you can see the four Duke guys around the perimeter, and every single one of them is ready to put up a three-pointer the moment Carey kicks it out to them. And for Notre Dame, I think they just weren't able to figure out. They couldn't pick their poison. They couldn't go, oh, let's stop Carey and let Duke shoot threes, or let's shoot the threes and let Carey do his thing. They weren't able to do either one of those. So Vernon Carey was scoring inside. Matthew Hurt, when he went down in the post, scored very effectively inside. Javin DeLaurier scored inside. You name it, they were able to score on the interior. And when the ball went to the exterior, when the ball went out beyond the three-point line, Duke was raining down threes. We hit 45% of our three-pointers. Now, I'll tell you, one of the most amazing stats from this game that I think is sort of the underreported thing about the game. Yes, Duke scored 94 points. We're not going to lose many games when we score 94 points. And that's a huge number. But the significant thing about this game was that Notre Dame only scored 60 because Notre Dame is one of the best offensive teams in the country. We said on the preview coming into this game that Notre Dame is like a top 20 offensive team. And I mean, they only got 60 points in a game that was played at a pretty high pace. There was a fascinating stat I saw. So I was looking at some really advanced stats that break down, where you take your shots and how well you hit your shots. Duke was 21 of 24 on shots sort of at the rim, around the rim, within 3 to 5 feet of the basket. 21 of 24. Basically, Notre Dame wasn't able to block any shots. They weren't able to contest shots that we took in that area, right there in the paint, right around the rim. 21 of 24. Notre Dame was 13 of 26. They only hit half of their shots that were taken at the rim. That's because Duke was blocking shots. Duke was getting in the way and disrupting what Notre Dame, was trying. We were contesting everything. If you only hit 50% of your shots at the rim, you're in huge trouble. What we saw in this game, I think, was a return of the Duke defense that was so effective earlier in December and January, that has kind of gone away to some extent lately. When Duke plays defense like that, Duke wins basketball games, period, end of story. Move on to the next question.
It was especially in the second half, that there's the stretch of 4 or 5 minutes where the lead stretched from maybe 13 or 14 to 25 in the blink of an eye because our defense was just on point that entire. You were mentioning that stat, 21 of 24 at the rim. That includes like a couple where Vernon Carey got a long like pass that he somehow was able to corral before it went out of bounds and try to heave up an alley-oop that would have been a miraculous alley-oop, and he just barely missed it, and then someone else would tip it back in. So really, when you're talking about 21-24, we were even, it felt to me, more efficient than even that, which is an incredible stat that you showed. Sam, I want to go to you. What did you see from this game? You were on press row for this game, so tell me, take back what you saw from your vantage point.
I'm glad that Jason came back to touch on the defense, because I think that was the more impressive part of this game. The offensive explosion from Duke is great. I don't know how replicable it is. Even Javin DeLaurier was able to hit a 3-pointer in this game. That's not part of Duke's standard
what's the over-under? What's the over-under on Javin DeLaurier threes on the season?
None. Has he ever even taken one before? I
think he's attempted one.
Yeah, early last year he took a couple.
He's not taking 3-pointers unless Duke is up by 25 points at least. So that's not. I want to set aside the shooting in this game, because I think it's just way too much on the positive end for us to say, well, that's what Duke's going to look like. That's the very best version of Duke's offense minus Cassius Stanley. I think the defense is the more impressive thing, and we will get in a second to some of the locker room audio that I was able to capture. But one of the things you're going to hear from the players is that they all were very conscious of clogging the passing lanes, playing what you might call old school Duke defense, the kind you might see from the late 90s, early 2000s teams, where it's all about, containing on the perimeter, the passing lanes, and preventing opponents from getting the ball sort of deep in the post or being able to swing the ball around really quickly. That defensive pressure is the thing that I was really interested in talking to some of the players about. So I went in the locker room after the game and was able to talk to Vernon Carey and Jordan Goldwire about this. You're about to hear some audio from them about how Duke was able to apply defensive pressure in this game, especially in the absence of Cassius Stanley.
Hey, Vern. Another great game for you tonight. Even got to hit the three. What did it feel like to come out and just really lay it on thick against this Notre Dame team?
Just coach has been on me since the FSU game, because I felt like I didn't play as well as I could have personally, and he's just been on me all week. And I've been doing extra work with Coach Nate and just taking care of my body in the training room, and it just paid off today.
What was the defensive game plan that made it so that you guys were able to jump out to such a quick lead?
Our game plan, especially for Mooney and Durham, just we were just icing the ball screens and just trying to recover back to. We were tagging and recovering back to Mooney and Durham, but I feel like overall, especially in the second half, we did a good job just getting stops and then capitalizing on their misses. Really.
How'd you like all your guards around you being able to get so many steals tonight? What was that related to that kind of pressure you were talking about?
Yeah, our game plan for the guards was to just deny the ball and the passes. So Jay Gold did. Jay Gold, Ayo. I mean, every guard on our team stepped up big time today. So it paid off.
I'm sure there's no correlation, but Zion walks up. Seems like everybody wants to can a three or do something big out there. Everybody kind of stepped their game up a tad more even after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just former players coming back. It's just everyone stepped up. I mean, just the former players coming back, especially it excites us players too. So I feel like we just stepped it up big time in the second half.
Defensive pressure was turned up tonight. What do you attribute that to, and how did you guys prepare defensively for this team?
Yeah, we just prepare to get out and pass the lane, try to disrupt their offense. They like to play at a slow pace, so we knew coming in that trying to speed them up was something that we were going to try to do and get out and run, and that's something that we did.
Have you been feeling more comfortable shooting the ball in recent games? It feels like you're getting open shots. Teams are letting you have them, and seems like you're making more of them. What's that change?
Yeah, just confidence in work. Been putting some work in with Coach Carroll before the games, and so we know that teams might lead me to go double burn, and just having the confidence. My teammates got the confidence in me, coach staff, so the ball's been going in, and it feels good.
At the beginning of the season, did you expect to be shooting this much, or is this really on you on that development?
I mean, I trusted my work, so I mean, for me to be able to see the ball go in, it feels good. I mean, I always have confidence in myself, so yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
So I think you get a good sense from Carey as the big man, who obviously played a huge role in this game as he has most of the season, but also from Jordan Goldwire, who has really risen up to, I think, be sharing the lead guard duties with Trey Jones. I mean, there was one possession where Jordan Goldwire felt like he was just given the task of, all right, go hound the ball handler until you get the ball out of his hands and rattle him so much that he's just going to avoid you later. So I think you got a good sense from both of those guys that Duke had a really strong defensive game plan, and that they were able to clog the lane against Notre Dame. They were able to disrupt the passing lanes and really frustrate, as you said, Jason, that Notre Dame offense that is usually pretty good at finding holes and finding good shots. They weren't able to do that on Saturday, leading Duke to get a lot of runouts, a lot of steals, and able to sort of demoralize the Irish such that the last 10 minutes of the game were kind of a joke. The other thing that was kind of cool in here and that I think is highlighted if you look at the progression of the lead throughout the game was the arrival of Zion Williamson. I don't know how prominently this came through on the broadcast. I assume that it did because
they talked about it prominently.
Oh, yeah. So
every 5 seconds they would flash to him.
So if you've been in Cameron anytime in the last couple of years, along with Duke sort of ramping up the whole brotherhood branding, one of the ways that they exhibit that in the stadium is that during one of the timeouts, the PA announcer will say, all right, folks, let's say hello to all the former players that are here in the house with us. And they'll start going through the guys, and they'll start with the older, less prominent ones and work their way up so that, the last guys they always mention are like the most famous guys. So the announcer, went through some of the players, like guys I've never heard of, I guess, who their pictures make it look like they're from the 70s or maybe even the 60s. And then they get to and say hello to Tyus Jones, and everyone goes crazy, and say hello to Quinn Cook, and everyone goes crazy. And then the PA announcer said, and I think Zion Williamson just stepped into the building because he had walked in the middle of the second half. I guess he had just arrived at the stadium. So people were losing their minds about that. And yes, I'm sure that the camera was flashing to him afterwards. I had a good vantage point on him, and he was eating it up. Like, as soon as he walked in, all the players on the court were like, all right, time to perform for Zion, which is when everyone started getting steals and Goldwire turned up the pressure and Javin DeLaurier started hitting threes, and cats and dogs were living together just because Zion was in the building watching the game. And he was having such a good time. He was sitting with Quinn Cook, and they were laughing it up on the sideline as the Duke lead was growing. It was one of the cooler things I think I've seen, from just like having a famous spectator in the stands. A year ago, Zion was in uniform playing for this team, and now he is such a huge celebrity that just his presence in Cameron gets the team going like that.
It was on ESPN. They basically, once he came in, they showed him anytime there was a break in the action, whether it was a foul, a timeout, out of bounds, change possession, even a missed shot. Sometimes they were zooming in on him, just had that Zion. They just had that Zion face on. Yeah, he just had the Zion face on. It was just great.
I will say that before they let the media into the locker room after the game, all the former players ran in there to hang out with the guys, and it was rather noisy. I don't know exactly what was going on in the locker room before we showed up, but they were clearly enjoying themselves. Everyone was all smiles after this one.
Real quickly before, we touched a lot on the defense. I want to talk about a particular point on offense, and then I know Jason wants to talk about the adjustments that we had to make last minute with Cassius Stanley being out. But first, I want to talk about the turnovers, or the reduced turnovers that we had. The last few games, we had been talking about our concern for how many times we had turned the ball over. In this game, we only turned the ball over 9 times. And really, when it comes to turnovers, those are things that are momentum killers. And when we had that long, deep run in the second half where, like you said, everything was coming together, one thing that was not stifling that momentum was turnovers. And I think that is what you want to see from any team. But really, it was very good to see them focus on that and reduce the amount of turnovers that they had, especially considering the last few weeks. They've been averaging about 15, 16 turnovers a game. 9 is way better, and that leads to a lot of, shots that we're taking. And as of last night, we were very efficient with the basketball on offense. So that was something that I hope will continue over the next week. Jason, before the game, we were supposed to have Cassius Stanley. And let's talk about him for a minute. We were supposed to have Cassius Stanley start during warmups, or I guess preceding the team warmups. He had an issue where I guess he collided with the manager. It's unclear what really happened, but he ended up being scratched from this game. He came back in the second half, was in uniform on the bench, but at that point it was a 25, 30-point lead, so he obviously did not play. Talk about the adjustments that we had to make last minute and how that affected us, good or bad. How would you see it?
I mean, the thing that I saw that changed as a result of Cassius Stanley not being in the game was Duke was a little bit bigger, because one of the things we heard was that Matthew Hurt got the start as a result of Cassius not being around. And, I feel like other than Trey Jones and Vernon Carey, who are both in contention to be All-Americans and to be ACC Player of the Year and are clearly the 2 best players on this team, I feel like I've talked about Matthew Hurt more than anybody else in recent weeks, because I think he's such a key player for this Duke team with his ability to play outside, present mismatches on the inside.
Well, and it's been, Jason, it's been such a bummer that I feel like we know how good Matthew Hurt is supposed to be, and he hasn't quite lived up to that. But this was an opportunity for him in this game. Yes.
And I was going to say, I love that coming off his worst week of the season. I mean, let's be very clear. The games against BC and North Carolina a week ago, where he plays 11 minutes against BC, he plays only 6 minutes against North Carolina. He scored a grand total of 2 points in those 2 games, a total of 2 points. He was a non-factor in every way that you can be a non-factor. For him to bounce back from those 2 games, to have the week he had this week, where he plays 18 minutes against Florida State, 27 minutes against Notre Dame, scores 12 points in both of those games, just looked really confident with his shot. I mean, hit some clutch free throws. He was 4 for 7 on 3-pointers. I thought Matthew Hurt had a great week. And look, obviously you never want a player to go down and get hurt or anything like that. And Cassius Stanley, Duke is a much worse team without Cassius Stanley. I was talking about how Trey and Vernon are Duke's 2 best players. I think a pretty good argument can be made that Cassius Stanley is our 3rd best player. So missing him matters a lot. But the fact that we're able to miss him, still crush Notre Dame by 30-plus points, and also really get lots of extra confidence back for Matthew Hurt and have him playing well is huge bonus, because the best Duke team, the Duke team that cuts down the nets, is a Duke team that features Matthew Hurt playing around 20 minutes a game, hitting a couple threes, and being a really difficult matchup for the other team. As much as I know other guys are key players, I'm not sure that Duke is able to reach its potential without Matthew Hurt playing that kind of way, the way he played this week.
Matthew Hurt should be one of the starters on this team. If everyone plays as well as they should, he should be one of the 5 best players, and he fits very naturally at a position where it feels like Duke is struggling this season, right? Carey is really holding it down at the center position, but none of the big wings seem to be able to create space inside the way that Hurt should be able to, right? Wendell Moore sometimes is able to do that. Stanley is sometimes able to do that, but we'd really prefer those guys to be around the perimeter and not closer to the basket.
Yeah, and when it comes to Matthew Hurt, I think, Jason, you're right. Last week was terrible, and this week he came back in a big way, and really that versatility is what any coach would need in a national championship team. They need somebody who's can do the dirty work, can go outside and go inside, who can draw the best defender out on them and create open spaces for other people, and really just by his presence on the court, be someone who can make an impact on every single game. I think we're seeing Matthew Hurt work through that in freshman year, where we would expect him. He has the ability to have an impact on every single game, but he just, obviously as a freshman, it's a lot to expect from one kid. And we're seeing those, those ups and downs. And I think going forward, if we can keep this confidence going, this is the right time to get it, right? We're almost at March. We have a few more games left in the regular season, and then every game is really, really, really going to count. So if Matthew Hurt can continue this and build on this confidence, we will have a much different and a much better basketball team come March.
Yeah, and the other quick thing I would say about Matthew Hurt is I thought this was a really nice defensive game for Matthew Hurt. Most of the time he was in the game, not all the time, but most of the time he was in the game, he was matched up with John Mooney, who is Notre Dame's stud. And it seems crazy to say a guy who got 19 points and 9 rebounds, which is what John Mooney did, 19 and 9. It seems crazy to say that we did a really good job defending him, but John Mooney's such a good ball player that 19 and 9, it took him 16 shots to get those 19 points. He had to shoot a pretty fair amount to get those 19 points. I think Duke did a really, really nice job on him. And I thought Matthew Hurt, I was specifically looking at how Matthew Hurt would defend him. And I thought Hurt did a really nice job on him. And that's one of the toughest matchups that Hurt's going to have all year.
The one last thing that I'll point out about Duke's performance in this game, I feel like we kind of yada-yada'd over the offense. It is notable that on a night when the defense was so good for Duke, some of the key players, Carey, Trey Jones, even Jordan Goldwire, were so efficient from the floor. And it is really great to see all of that coming together. That's been, there'll be nights when one or two of those guys will be really good. It finally feels like the offense is able to click with multiple players being able to be efficient from the field. You guys already touched on it, but I think it's important to highlight that is a big development for this Duke team, to have multiple key offensive players clicking at the same time.
Okay, guys, we have a midweek matchup for us this week. We're going to play North Carolina State, one of those games that sometimes can be tricky, especially with them being one of those rivals from down the road in Raleigh. So, Sam, I'm going to start with you. What can we expect this week on Wednesday when we take on the Wolfpack? What are you looking for from us in this game?
Duke has occasionally had troubles with NC State, particularly in Raleigh. State obviously considers North Carolina like their most important rival, but that doesn't mean that their fans and their players aren't excited to steal a game from Duke. So hopefully it's just a game where Duke locks down. They do have a couple days to recover from this Notre Dame game. You could see the benefit of rest with the long layoff after Florida State that Duke had, coming into the Notre Dame game. Hopefully the same holds true for the game in Raleigh on Wednesday. Duke gets 3 days off and then, a trip where they don't have to get on an airplane. They just have to get in the bus and go basically down the street to Raleigh. So hopefully the being on the road now, having been at home for a couple games, doesn't throw Duke off. I think that the thing I'm most looking for is to see, kind of going back to my most recent point, I want to see those offensive players able to, continue to play in rhythm together and get good shots. NC State is a team that Duke should play really well against. They're sort of a fringy bubble team this season. Duke is playing as well as anybody in the country right now and should be able to dispatch the Wolfpack easily if they're clicking. I think the trouble will be if Duke isn't able to continue to apply pressure on the defensive end the way that they were against Notre Dame. So I'm kind of looking for both sides of that. I haven't gotten a chance really to watch a lot of State recently, so I don't know exactly, what the keys from them are. But I'm going to be watching this Duke team to see if all this progress is real or if it's just Notre Dame having a bad night in Cameron.
So NC State really doesn't have a big win on their schedule. Every ranked team that they've played this season, they've lost, although some of them have been close games. But they're still fifth in the ACC. They're probably one big win away from, at least in their mind, making a challenge for trying to put themselves in contention for that NCAA tournament. Jason, what players from NC State should we be looking out for when we play them on Wednesday night?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for State is their senior point guard, Markel Johnson, who State is really good when Markel Johnson is able to hit his threes. And he has not hit his he's only hitting 25% of them this year. And he's been better than that at other times in his career. This NC State team needs, for them to beat Duke, they're going to need Markel Johnson to have one of his best games of the year, and they're probably going to need him. He shoots the most threes on their team. They're not a team that shoots a lot of 3-pointers. They're going to have to they're going to have to be very good from 3-point range, which they haven't been all year. They're like 250th in the nation in 3-point percentage. They're going to have to be way, way better than that to have a real chance against Duke. The matchup I think that's sort of going to be the most interesting is State's big man, DJ Funderburk, against Vernon Carey. DJ Funderburk is really efficient on the inside. Doesn't shoot a ton, but he hits almost 65% of his 2-point field goals, 65%. So he is right in there with Vernon Carey in terms of being a super efficient guy on the inside. If the formula for State to win this game is probably Markel Johnson hits more threes, a higher percentage of threes than usual. DJ Funderburk at least duels Vernon Carey to a standoff. And I get, and someone like Braxton Beverly or CJ Bryce also has a really good game. That may be asking too much of this NC State team. Donald, as you pointed out, they don't have any win that you look at and you go, oh, that's an impressive win. That shows that this is a team that's capable of playing with, a tournament level team. I mean, their best win is probably Wisconsin. They beat Wisconsin in the ACC Big Ten Challenge, which is a nice win. But Wisconsin is such an up and down team. And that game was at State. Wisconsin is so much better at home than on the road. Other than that, there isn't a really, like, their next best win after that is probably they beat Notre Dame, I guess. Actually, they beat Virginia. I forgot they beat Virginia. But this State team is currently 7-6 in the ACC. That's not going to get you to the dance. They've got to find a way to probably win, of their remaining 6 ACC contests. They got to win. I'm sorry, they're 7-7. I said they were 7. They're 7-7 in the ACC. They lost tonight to Boston College. Of their final 6 contests, they've got to win at least 4 of them, and they've got to have a big win. They've got Duke and Florida State at home, so they've got chances to get a marquee win. But if they don't win one of those 2 games, they're going to be going to the NIT. And I think it's going to take several guys from State having among their best games of the year.
Yeah, they only have a couple more chances, like you said. I think they play us a second time in Cameron. Obviously, that would be a difficult task for them, hopefully. But Wednesday night is really going to be one where I always look at that game. As Sam mentioned, it's a game we've lost to them in Raleigh before, and it's because they show up for us. And that's one of these games where this is it. This is going to be the guys that they consider rivals. This is their Super Bowl for the year because UNC's not that good. So this is going to be the one that they're going to get up for. Wednesday night is going to be a raucous atmosphere, and I think the energy needs to be there from the jump because that's usually where we falter in Raleigh. So Wednesday night, 9 p.m. is a late start, and we will see if our guys can do it. We're going to talk about a couple of other things to get to our player of the week and parting shots after a word from these sponsors. So we're back here on the Duke Basketball Report podcast, episode 191. We have a little update from the NCAA. Mark Emmert, the president, went to Congress last week. You probably missed it because Congress has been a little busy lately here in D.C. But, Jason, you have the scoop on what was discussed in Congress over this pay-to-players ongoing phenomenon, ongoing saga. Give us an update on what you saw last week from Mark Emmert here in D.C. in Congress.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to say, first of all, I consider advocating for paying the players, finding a way to compensate them fairly, to be a personal mission of mine on this podcast and a personal mission of this podcast in general. I think everyone knows the current system is unfair, it does not work, and it must be changed. So Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, went before a Senate panel this past week, and he virtually got down on his knees and begged Congress to please pass some national law that will govern the way players will deal with name, likeness, and image, and the way the NCAA is able to maintain eligibility for players while still allowing them to be compensated for their name, image, and likeness. He asked for a national standard. He said different states. There are 25 different states that are considering different laws. And the NCAA says, oh, no, we're powerless. We can't control this. All these different states are doing things. Folks, if you have a child in the car, cover their ears because I'm about to use foul language. Bullshit.
Wait. Before you do that. You do that. Okay, now do it. Get him, Jason.
Bullshit. It is complete bullshit from Mark Emmert to say that the NCAA can't police this on their own. He's totally making shit up. The truth of the matter is this. The NCAA Board of Governors, who are Mark Emmert's bosses, could make a change to this as quickly as they want to. And what they could simply do is they could say, hey, you know that California law that everyone seems to really like? That law that says that goes into effect in 2023 that says players are allowed to make money off their name, image, and likeness? We're going to make that the rule for every NCAA state, every NCAA institution. And you know what? Every one of those other states, those 24 other states that are considering different laws, they would drop it instantly. They'd go, oh, good. Thank you for dealing with this. We can go on to other things like taxes and building new roads and the stuff that legislators are supposed to do. They don't want to have to deal with this. The only reason different states are dealing with it is because the NCAA is too cowardly and too corrupt to deal with it on their own. So Mark Emmert, bullshit. He says he's worried about a level playing field. He says he's worried about rich schools being able to pay players more than poor schools. Boo-hoo. Have you seen the facilities and the perks at a big football or basketball program compared to a small one? Duke goes to Hawaii every other year. We go on foreign trips every other year. How many teams in the Atlantic Sun, the MEAC, the Missouri Valley are doing that? Duke players get tons of free shoes and gear from Nike. They appear on television enough to be household names to even the most casual college hoops fans. This is to say nothing of guys who play football for Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama or Georgia or Clemson. The idea that Mark Emmert is powerless to do anything because he doesn't know how to handle dealing with rich schools versus poor schools. Again, bullshit. 99.3% of the top 100 football recruits pick a Power 5 conference team. The big schools already have a recruiting advantage, and no one seems to care about that. So the idea that the NCAA is now saying, oh no, the fact that some of these big schools may be able to pay them a little more than the small schools, that's the reason they can't put this in place? Again, Mark Emmert, bullshit.
By proxy, these programs are able to continue offering the best, right? It's just a matter of, are they getting it via the best facilities, or the coaches having the nicest planes to recruit them in, or the players taking the nicest planes to the games that they're playing in? You know, the money finds its way to the programs one way or another. It's just a matter of us deciding that some of that money deserves to go directly to the players as opposed to the rest of the infrastructure that's in place around them to keep the system running.
First of all, Jason, I think the kids can now tune this back in, but that was perfect. The fact that Mark Emmert wants to go to Congress can't pass a resolution congratulating a national champion without there being an objection. And he wants them to institute a blanket standard of restricting the money and the amount of money that college scholarship athletes can earn. I think is just preposterous. I mean, we're already having the haves versus the have-nots, and now we are telling people, because you're good at a certain industry, you can't make money off of your name. If I was good at chemistry, believe me, I can build a chemistry set and sell it, or have a cure or create a drug or something and make billions off of it while I'm in college. If I play an instrument, I can go on tour while in school and make money off of my craft.
You could give lessons. If you're smart,
lessons.
Absolutely. If you're good at math, you can be a math tutor. You can make good money doing that. If I'm good at basketball, I cannot be a basketball tutor. I cannot be a basketball coach on the side. It's stupid.
Right. And he's actually going to Congress to advocate for them to pass a law restricting that. And we know, and honestly, I'll be real with it. We're going to go there. We know who it's targeting. is targeting the football players and is targeting the basketball players, of which most of them are a certain persuasion. He's going after some people's livelihoods in the only way that he knows how. And I think that is wrong, first of all, that just blanket wrong. But really, on top of that, it really shows.
I'll say it. It's a bunch of old white men telling young black men they're not allowed to make money.
And telling them what to do. And telling them that they should be okay and they should be, grateful that they have a scholarship to attend a Division I university. And I think that's stupid. I think that's preposterous. And they know what they're trying to do. But hopefully, if Congress is, I can't say if Congress is smart because they're not. I'm not trying to be political, but on either side of the aisle, we got some dumb folks up here in district. But these guys need to wake up and they need to get with the program. It's 2020. We can't have people advocating in Congress to hold people back. I think that's the dumbest part of all, and that he's trying to hold tens of thousands of college athletes back simply for the simple fact that they know how to pick up a ball and play that sport really well.
So if I can, I'll take the last word on this if you guys don't mind, because this is my baby.
Please do.
So there are two other things really quickly that I want to note about all of this. The Associated Press has done a little bit of digging, and they found out that over the course of the past year, the NCAA has dramatically stepped up the amount of lobbying dollars that it's putting out there to get Congress to work on its behalf. That's what lobbying is. When you lobby, when you pay a lobbyist, it's so they will go talk to a congressperson and get that congressperson to do your job for you. So the NCAA spent $500,000 on lobbying in the past year. That's the most it has spent on lobbying in more than half a decade. And also, for the first time ever, conferences are helping the NCAA out and doing lobbying as well. The ACC, our conference, the ACC never had a lobbying budget until last year, when suddenly we invested $200,000 in a DC lobbyist. The Big 12 had a nominal $5,000 a quarter lobbyist on retainer, which means he wasn't doing anything for them other than being on retainer. They suddenly last year ramped that up to $100,000 in spending. Between the NCAA, the ACC, and the Big 12, they're spending $750,000 to make sure Congress does what they want. And the players, they have $0 for lobbying. There are a couple organizations out there that are trying to represent the players' interests, but we are talking about a one-sided situation. And it is offensive and terrible that the NCAA is doing this. And the last thing I want to say about this really, really quickly, Seth Greenberg, they were talking about this whole thing a little bit on College Game Day over the weekend. And Seth Greenberg, who doesn't often say things that I find interesting and insightful, said something that was really insightful. He said he personally knows several coaches, members of the profession that he was in for a long time, who have begun talking to boosters and alumni about setting up a system. So the moment the NCAA allows name, likeness, and image to be a part of compensating players, the moment that happens, these programs are already ready. They already have a system in place. So they will be able to say, hey, player A, come to my school and we're going to give you X, Y, and Z. We're going to arrange this endorsement for you. We're going to pay you for this thing. You're going to get to sell this many jerseys, all that other kind of stuff. Whatever it is the NCAA allows, these folks are going to have systems in place from day one. And I guarantee you, there's no question in my mind that Duke University is one of those programs that's already figured out or figuring out exactly how they deal with this, because they know it's coming. Mark Emmert may want to deny it. He may think he's got his finger in the dike holding back the waters, but the waters are coming. They're coming by 2023 when that California law goes into effect, or sooner.
It's going to be just a final thing. You mentioned all the money in lobbying and all the money that they're trying to do. When it comes to people and billions of dollars, billionaires and billionaire organizations, to them, money is no object to keep money in their pocket and out of yours. And that's what we're seeing right now in college basketball. Okay, guys, we have come to our player of the week. A reminder, we did have a game earlier this week. You can take that game into account as well as the game last night. So, Sam, who is your player of the week?
I think for the full set of contributions this week, he wasn't the flashiest player, but We talked about how hard he played against Florida State, and I think against Notre Dame, he really showed out at both ends of the floor. I'm giving Player of the Week this week to Jordan Goldwire.
That's a good pick. Jason, what do you got?
I don't know how, after I talked about him earlier, I can't give it to Matthew Hurt. I'm giving it to Matthew Hurt, not because he was the best player of the week, because he wasn't, but he had a bounce back week. And he was at a moment. Look, it's really easy to get down on yourself and not have the intestinal fortitude to say, I'm not playing a lot, I'm not playing well. That's okay. I'm going to work harder, as opposed to sort of going into a shell. And what Matthew Hurt did was he took last week and he tossed it in the trash can and had a good week this week. So I'm going to go with Matthew Hurt as my player of the week.
I like that, Jason. I was hoping that you would select him because it means that two of us did. I'm also going with Matthew Hurt. And for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, but specifically because we needed a big week from him last week. We didn't get one. It worked out. But this week, he kind of came back and really took charge. And again, I feel like that confidence is something that's building within him. And I'm really hoping that it just keeps going up and up over the next few weeks as we get into March. But for this week, he was definitely a guy that was maybe an unsung hero to these games. So I will consider him my player of the week. All right, now it is time for parting shots. And we alluded to it last week. Jason teed it up for us last week, and now he gets to talk about it. Jason, your parting shot.
I'm going to introduce you to the research of a gentleman named Luke Benz. Luke is a data scientist who graduated from Yale in 2019 with a Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics. What that means is he's able to talk about things that I don't understand at all. But he did, for his dissertation, for his BS, he did an extensive study of the value of the timeout in basketball. And what Luke found
is that Roy Williams.
Yes, Roy Williams is an idiot, because what Luke found is if you look at the now he does all this math that I can't even begin to follow. But if you look at the expected number of points a team should get over a 5-minute period, if a team calls timeout, they generally get between 1.5 and 2.2 extra points over the next 5 minutes as a result of calling that timeout. Now, it's worth noting that depending on where it is in the game, that can be different. I mean, we're not saying if you call a timeout and there's 30 seconds left in the game, you're not going to automatically get an extra 1.5 to 2 points. It's expected value, and Luke says that taking timeouts earlier, especially in the first half, he thinks is a very valuable thing. Correcting course when it's going bad early in the game, Luke says, is a hugely important team. He says teams calling a timeout perform better for about 5 minutes following that timeout. That's really significant. And he said that, the least valuable timeout is the use it or lose it timeout right before halftime. Coach K does that a lot. He just hasn't needed to call a timeout the whole first half, and so he'll call a timeout with 30 seconds left to design a good play. But he said other than those timeouts and the timeouts at the very, very end of the game where you're literally just stopping the clock, he said that, calling timeouts is actually something really valuable. Again, 1.5 to 2.2 points over the course of 5 minutes. And I just think it's fascinating that someone dug into the numbers enough to come up with this. This is not him guessing. This is him putting together formulas that would make my head spin. But this is what he came up with. So a hat tip to Luke Benz, the Yale graduate, who says Roy Williams is an idiot for hoarding his timeouts.
That was really worth the wait. Thank you for that, Jason. That was awesome. Sam, do you have a parting shot for us today?
I came across a couple of highlights of some of the incoming recruits that Duke has for next season's basketball team and wanted to just quickly highlight them. One was from incoming forward Jalen Johnson, who I guess has had to transfer schools or programs just as he was a couple of weeks ago.
He was at IMG Academy and he got hurt and things didn't work out for him. And he went back to his hometown and he's playing again now, just as of a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, he's playing.
Well, anyway, we can link to this, or you can look this up. There is an awesome highlight of him on the run out doing a fast break dunk and throwing the ball between his legs. I know we're going to get to the slam dunk contest in a second. So look out for Jalen Johnson on the break next year. The other one that is just from tonight, a highlight of incoming point guard Jeremy Roach, who plays at Paul VI in DC. So I don't know, Donald, if you've ever gotten to see Jeremy Roach, but they were playing national powerhouse DeMatha tonight. They won the game, and Jeremy Roach was fantastic against DeMatha. So a couple of Duke guys making big impacts visually, and then also really for their teams and getting big wins here in their senior seasons.
That DeMatha Paul VI game that you just mentioned was one that I had circled when I saw that Jeremy Roach was playing in that league this year. I just got back into town, and with this, it just didn't work out. But he has been very dominant in that Jalen Johnson dunk that you mentioned. Duke Basketball's Twitter actually posted it. So just go in there, scroll until you find someone hurtling through the air with the ball between his legs. That would be Jalen Johnson, next year's incoming recruit.
The fancy highlight for Jeremy Roach is a 3-pointer that he took from like nearly half court tonight against DeMatha. It's pretty wild, like Trae Young style,
off the bus range. I like it.
That's right.
But by the way, all 5 Duke recruits for next year are going to be playing in the Jordan Brand Classic. All 5 of them made the Jordan Brand. All 5 of them are on the same team. There is a very, very real chance at some point we will see Jeremy Roach at point guard, DJ Stewart at shooting guard, Jalen Johnson at small forward, Jamin Brakefield at power forward, and Mark Williams at center. You will very likely see all 5 of the Duke guys on the floor at the same time. And by the way, all the Carolina recruits in the game, I think there are 3 Carolina recruits in the Jordan Brand game, all on the other team.
Well, they can get served starting from the Jordan Brand. They can do it if they really want to hear that life and see what next year is going to be like. They can go ahead and play in that game. Otherwise, I would fake an injury and maybe shoot for the McDonald's All-American game or something. My parting shot, Jason, you talked about it earlier, and I'm going to really talk about it. It is the slam dunk contest. And last night, I will start off by saying that this slam dunk contest last night, especially the dunk off basically between Aaron Gordon and Derek Jones Jr., was one of the best I have ever seen. These guys came with it last night. Having said that, there is some controversy in the slam dunk contest because the winner did not win.
No. There's no controversy about it because everyone knows what should have happened, and that is not what happened.
I will again say the winner of the contest did not actually win the contest. Once again, Aaron Gordon was robbed for the second time. Now, you might recall a few years ago, there was one of the best dunk-offs we've ever seen between Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine ended up winning that dunk contest, although most people there are probably like, you know what, Aaron Gordon probably got him. I was not mad at that one. Zach LaVine had 3 of the best dunks that we've ever seen, and Aaron Gordon had the other 2. That's fine. I'll take that as a toss-up. But this one, Aaron Gordon had 3 dunks that are all-time dunks. And he still didn't win. He had 550 dunks. He needed 6 apparently because also, and that 6th dunk is him jumping over 7'5" Taco Fall and dunking the ball, clearing him.
What did you say? He dunked over a 7'5" guy? That's never been done before.
7'5" guy. And that was enough for a 47, ladies and gentlemen. One short of the 48 that Derek Jones got for stepping 1 foot in and doing a windmill tomahawk a la Zach LaVine. So again, Aaron Gordon got beat twice by the same dunk. This one wasn't as good as Zach LaVine's, but it was still pretty good. I will give Derek Jones that. And this controversy is not about Derek Jones and his ability to dunk the ball. He was fantastic last night. He had a couple of dunks that made people jump out of their seats, just like everybody else. But Aaron Gordon getting robbed twice is a travesty. He should have 2 trophies on his shelf, and instead he has 0. They asked him right afterwards if he was going to try for a 3rd time, and he said, no, I've been robbed twice. There's no reason why I should do this thing a 3rd time. And he's absolutely right, because last night there was something fishy going on, and I wouldn't say it ruined the contest because it was a really good contest, but it ruined the stigma of it, because if the best dunker is not going to win, then why do we have a dunk contest? And I think, and here's the thing, one thing that the reverberations of this someone asked if Ja Morant and Zion Williamson would do this next year, and Ja Morant has already said no. And everyone would say that next year, if those 2 enter the contest, everyone else should just back out and let those guys go at it. But if they're not going to do this, and it's because of this sort of thing where the system with the judging, then that's a big problem. If the best dunkers are going to be basically scared away from this competition, then we shouldn't have it. The best bet is to revamp the scoring and also to get some judges in there that have won dunk contests and knows what it takes and knows what the difference is between a 9 and a 10 or a 9.5 and a 10. And because if we did, Aaron Gordon would have 2 trophies right now, and right now he has 0, and I think that's a travesty.
No participation trophies for the dunk contest. We gotta stretch out the scoring system here. I don't know if we need to add an 11 or we need to start giving out 5s, but I agree with you. It's silly if guys are getting nearly perfect scores for dunks that are not nearly perfect dunks.
I'm sorry. I will say real quickly, Jason, that Dwight Howard, who came back from dunk contest, we all know he won with the Superman dunk about 10 years ago. He recreated that same dunk. It wasn't as good as he did it before because he didn't catch it and actually throw it through, and he got a 49. Aaron Gordon jumped over a 7'5" dude, and he got a 47.
And Dwight Howard was just sort of there for the nostalgia, I feel like, more than anything.
Yep.
Dwight
he
Howard
wasn't expected to win. He was this guy.
He is not the Dwight Howard of old. He's still really cool and can jump in ways that I cannot fathom, but not the same level.
Look, the way to know that this was a travesty, the way to know that this was wrong, is the expression on everyone's face when they showed the 47 score for Aaron Gordon. It wasn't just Aaron Gordon reacting to it. You even saw Derek Jones Jr. being like, "Whoa, what? Really?
Yeah, it looked like me.
Really?
He was
like, I didn't deserve to win that. I don't think." Like his buddies were like doing, "Dude, you didn't deserve to win."
Yeah, it was bad, and they need to get that together next year because that, in my opinion, is the highlight of the all-star skills competitions that are always on Saturday night. I think it's the best event that there is in the major leagues. I would put the slam dunk contest and the home run derby together. Those two are leaps and bounds about everything else. But if it's not done right, and we've seen it in the home run derby too, if it's not done right, then it ruins the whole experience. And last night, I think the judging and how it was judged ruined the whole experience, and it needs to be changed so that next year we get the guys in there that we know we want to see. We want to see Zion Williamson. We want to see John Morant. We want to see Aaron Gordon come back and actually win this thing because he should have won too. And I think that in the end, if they don't address this is going to be something that people are going to think about, and some of these guys are going to back out, and we're going to have some of those dunk contests like we had a few years ago with 4 guys that nobody knows. So that hopefully will change. But as we record right now, the All-Star game's going on, I think that skills competition needs to be revamped.
Well, and I'll tell you something. I mean, you brought up the reason that this is really unfortunate, which is if we never get to see Zion Williamson and John Morant, not even competing against each other, just in general, if we never get to see those guys doing a slam dunk contest, that's a real pity. I mean, they are so special, both of those guys, with their ability to get in the air and do unbelievable things. It would be a crime if we never got the treat of seeing them pull out the most creative, most athletic thing they can do. I hope that doesn't happen, but I fear that it will.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with it. Obviously, the fallout it was everything that was talked about today. And as the sports talk shows jump up tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon, that's all that's going to be discussed. We'll end it here on episode 191 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We will be back to you sometime later on in the week. Obviously, we have that game Wednesday night in Raleigh against NC State. We will come back to you sometime after that. But until then, for Jason Evans in Atlanta and for Sam Klein in our beautiful Durham, North Carolina, I am Donald Wine. We will see you soon. And until then, and always, Duke Band, take us home.